Hey guys, it's Sam Weller. Welcome to the latest installment of Creativity 451. So the last time we got together, we talked about Ray Bradbury and a creative prompt he discovered when he was in his early 20s that just changed his life. You know, the man was so prolific through the entirety of his career, and this prompt was something that just created a windfall of original ideas. He made these lists of nouns, all beginning with the word the jar, the lake, the skeleton, the coffin, the attic, you name it. I mean, the guy just ran off with these things and let the nouns trigger memories or concepts or ideas, or they gave him an image that he would run off with. And so that was life altering for him. And for the rest of his life, he did some version of this, really. I mean, if you're familiar with his old television program, the Ray Bradbury Theater, which ran from the mid-1980s to the early 1990s, at the beginning of it, you see his office, and he talks about surrounding himself with metaphors, saving everything. He says, I'll never starve for ideas, right? Because he's surrounded by stuff. And so perhaps that was just rationalization for being a pack rat, but I don't think that's the case. I think he could look at something, a candle, you know, or a beer, and come up with an idea based around it. And so surrounding himself with metaphors, as he would say, would trigger things for him. And so that was really the beginning of, you know, this prolific run for him that would continue for the entirety of his life. The other secret, I think, to his success, there might be three things really. The first is the noun exercise, which we looked at just briefly. And when I give talks or teach creative writing workshops at libraries or colleges or high schools, I'll do hour, 2 hour, 3 hour writing sessions based around the noun exercise. So that the noun exercise was vital at the beginning of his career. The next thing that I would think, was really, really important to him was staying true and writing about the things that he loved deeply. He would say that the secret to his life, all of it, was love. And by that, what he was talking about was that he fell in love with things deeply, ideas, works of art, books, films, travel. He was a very passionate individual, and he brought that passion over to his writing. And so a great example was the story that we read just a part of in the last installment of Creativity 451. I read to you all the paragraph about this sort of mythic invention of the Foghorn itself from his classic 1951 collection of short stories, very underrated in my opinion, The Golden Apples of the Sun. We often talk about Fahrenheit 451, The Martian Chronicles, Something Wicked, This Way Comes, Dandelion Wine, The Illustrated Man. This is a book that belongs next to all of those I just named to you. I mean, this is a absolutely canonical work of short fiction that both mixes Bradbury's fantastic stories, his science fiction, and his contemporary realist prose all in one book. It's a great book. And so I read to you just a paragraph from The Foghorn, and Bradbury told me often, very, very often, forgive me, I'm going to have a drink of beer here. Got a really good beer going. He told me often that passion and following the things he loved and writing about them led to his success. So if you were sitting right here with me, he would say, could you imagine if I didn't fall in love with dinosaurs as a young boy and stay in love with dinosaurs all through my life? Example of this is the story of the Foghorn, all right? About the last dinosaur on Earth, all right? It's in the deepest of the deeps of the ocean, this cold ocean. And this creature hears the sound of a coastal foghorn and it rises from the depths because it hears the foghorn emanating from a lighthouse and thinks that it is the call of its lost mate, that maybe, perhaps, it's not the last dinosaur on Earth. Maybe, perhaps, it is not alone, right? And so Bradbury would say to me often, could you imagine if I didn't write a dinosaur story when I was, in my early 30s? If I didn't stay in love with dinosaurs and say, as a grown adult, I'm going to write a dinosaur story. That was really important to him. This single story, The Foghorn from Golden Apples of the Sun, he wrote, it appeared in Saturday Evening Post under the title The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which later became a film based on his idea, very, very, very loosely based on it. But it's the only time he really worked with his best friend, Ray Harryhausen, the great special effects animator, who also was the best man at his wedding in September of 1947. And so that film, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, was very loosely based on his short story that ran in the Saturday Evening Post. And Bradbury would say, look, I wrote a dinosaur story, and this is so vital to his success, is that as a grown-up, he didn't let go of the things he loved as a child. And so that's the third secret to Bradbury's success, right? Is that he never relinquished his inner child. He stayed connected to his childlike joie de vivre, to the boy at the nucleus of his existence. He stayed in touch with that child forever. And so those three things, the noun exercise, writing about the things he loved, and staying connected to his inner child, were, I think, the three absolutely imperative ingredients that led to his success. All right? And so again, if he were sitting here with us, he would say, look, I wrote this dinosaur story, and I went on to publish it, and it came out in the Golden Apples of the Sun, and he sent the book to filmmaker, the great director, John Huston, who was the Scorsese, the Spielberg of the 40s and 50s. And he sent his books to Huston, telling him, I would love basically to work with you. Bradbury was very gutsy and very proactive with his writing career and sent these books out. And in August of 1953, interestingly enough, the same week he finished Fahrenheit 451, the revision work on his novel that's largely considered his classic. The same week he finished it, Huston called him and said, I've received your books. I'd like to meet with you. And John Huston went on to offer Ray Bradbury an opportunity to write the screenplay for the film Moby Dick, the adaptation of the great Herman Melville novel. And so Bradbury again would say, could you imagine if I didn't write a dinosaur story? If I didn't stay in love with dinosaurs? Could you imagine if I gave up on the things that I loved as a child and didn't chase my passions into the forest as a writer, off into the woods and the meadows as a writer, and write about the things I love? Could you imagine? So for all of you creators, musicians, movie makers, actors, illustrators, writers, poets, what have you, make a list. This is the prescription from a genius, from Ray Douglas Bradbury. Make a list right now of the things you love, the things you just adore, whatever they are, from the obvious to the things that may even surprise you, that you remind yourself that you love. Childhood books, your favorite films, your favorite food, your favorite travel memory, your favorite memory of a lost loved one. Make a huge, glorious list in your journal of the things you adore. And let it sit in there as seeds that you have now planted in a field, all right? And if you allow your creativity to thrive and explore each one in a poem or an essay or a song or what have you, whatever your creative pursuit may be, if you pursue these loves and create from them, you are going to be driven to completing them because you're inspired by them. You love these ideas. It's important to bring our enthusiasm to our creativity. This is the lesson of Bradbury, okay? So thanks for joining me. I'll come back again in an installment coming up soon. Stay safe, stay well. This is a tough time. If Ray were here right now, he would say, we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Keep in mind, he was born in 1920. This is his centennial. He had a brother and a dear uncle pass away from the influenza pandemic of 1918. Bradbury knew the impact of a global pandemic well. And so if he were here right now, he would say, listen to the experts, listen to the scientists. Don't defy what our science is telling us. Stay indoors, be socially distant until we get through this. We're all going to be okay. And he would say, use this as an opportunity to be creative. Take care, everybody.